Now, it's not like the Panthers ran away and hid in this series, but they were the feistier, more energetic, more opportunistic team. And your man, Sergei Bobrovsky, how weird would this be? You've been writing this man's obituary, writing this man's epitaph since he signed with the team. It seemed like a good idea for what, about 10 minutes, Libby, until we saw him play?
I don't know. You were ahead of me. You started calling him blind. You swore that he had a vision problem.
Yes, we signed a guy with a cataract. Unbelievable. A tick, I think we discovered. Did he have a tick? Yeah, he had one of those things where he does like some weird winking all of a sudden. And you're thinking, are you trying to tell me, like that you're saying something, but you really don't mean it? What is it that you're doing, Bobrovsky? Communicate with him. He was communicating with his banker. That's all anybody was talking about, that he was making his $10 million that Dale Talon doled out for him when he could have signed any number of other attractive free agents.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very pleasant good morning, everybody. Great to be with you on this fine Wednesday. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie, Lubitz. And we always love it here on the Defo Show when we have live sporting action taking place. And I've taken the liberty, and people will say, hey, how come you got your TV running there? I can see it in the background in that Klitschko-Williams poster, which is a classic poster that was, the publicity, forerunner for what was a perfectly awful mismatch of a bout. Good poster, though. But you'll see the reflection in there. And I've been watching this European tennis tour has been sensational on the red clay, Lubie. I've been talking about that. And you're accusing me of becoming a Jim Sarney presence like on the show here, where I'm talking about obscurity in the sporting world before we even get to the meat of the matter, which, of course, tonight's the night. What other songs would be relatable to, something that was going to happen? Can You Feel It in the Air Tonight? That would be another one, right? That was a big one. Phil Collins for a long time. Can you feel it in the air tonight? But tonight's the night that the Heat and the Celtics get underway, and that is good because we've been going through a little bit of withdrawal, are we not, on playoff action? Did you need a couple of days of rest to get your head together and get focused on these series? Or I kind of wish one of them had started last night, and we were on the end of the second one tonight. But we can wait a day. 24 hours. And we do have, if you had to find a way to meddle your way through the sporting calendar, and it looks like it's lousy weather today in Rome, but they have some marquee matchups, Lubie. Marquee matchups, including what was supposed to start right now, if the rain allows it, the Joker versus your favorite player, Holger Rune of Hungary, the 19-year-old sensation. Yeah. That's the way they're starting out. And then later on the women's side, Iga Swiatek has just been mowing people down in this tournament. Goes against Rybakina, who won Wimbledon last year in a breakthrough. I thought about betting her that day. I actually was in Atlantic City when that was taking place, the Wimbledon final in the women's side, and I thought, let's bet this tall drink of water and see what happens. And she ended up winning the thing, but has been a prominent player ever since. And they meet in the quarterfinals, so kind of a premature meeting as to where they normally would be positioned. But nonetheless, sensational action on tap there, Libby. And that will help ease the pain of getting to tonight and the Celtics and the Miami Heat, where nobody in the universe, Libby, not a single person, not even you. Now, maybe that's a good omen that you're on the other side of this thing. That gives the Heat more of a chance, would you say? It would be almost as if Rachel Nichols came out and said, look, Celtics in 4. To curse the Celtics' chances. 8.5-point favorites tonight. Heat being totally disregarded. And even at my son Christian's birthday party, it was brought up by several of the 5-year-olds who were in attendance that ESPN is giving the Heat no chance, a 3% chance of winning the series. That's according to what? How could that possibly be? The Heat are minus, they're what? You get 400, 4-1. 400 on 100.
Which is ridiculous for a conference finals.
But you have to lay 550 to win 100 on the Boston Celtics. Very prohibitive odds on a series that you would think would be closer than that, no?
Hey.
I would give the Heat probably a better shot against the Celtics than I gave the 76ers, who took them to 7 games. The 76ers, with their dysfunctional, chaotic presence, especially under these kind of circumstances where James Harden, is going to eventually vanish. You called it. You said all season long when I was pushing James Harden being a decent contributing catalyst type player for the Philadelphia 76ers, and how he had kind of changed his game a little bit, almost Earl the Pearl Monroe-esque, except this was coming at the very tail end of his career, where Monroe might have had a longer shelf life as a 35, 40-point-a-game scorer. He didn't have to do that with the New York Knicks, and it would have been completely out of sync with the rest of the team concept if all of a sudden you had Earl the Pearl going for 35 like he did with the Bullets all those years. In this case, you would think that James Harden, he was capable of scoring a lot of points, but he wasn't quite there anymore. Had a couple of spectacular games, and Sixers won both of those, but they were so scattered. And on the top of that, they fired Doc Rivers yesterday. Did we have that information on yesterday's program in the morning?
Lunchbox.
Yeah, because it happened during the day, right?
Yeah, happened late.
No big surprise. I mean, there are many people. I told you I was reading an article, and the headline on it was that the Sixers didn't just lose this year because they had Doc Rivers. They were doomed the day they signed him as a head coach. That's how little regard some people have for Doc Rivers' coaching acumen. And yet, he did have him in. Could anybody have coached that team into the second round of the playoffs 3 years in a row? What do you think, Libby?
Yes. Doc Rivers has underwhelmed everywhere he's gone. I mean, that's just the reality. That Celtics group went to 2 finals and won a title. And yeah, there were injuries, but they were supposed to be this dynastic group, and they were not. Going to 2 finals and winning one is not even sniffing a dynasty. Then the Clippers were loaded, and there were multiple times in series they were up in series, and they always gave it away. And now that's
and many times you could probably take a look at coaching decisions and say they were suspect at best.
And last year the Sixers seemed to have everything together, and you said it, like he kept Embiid in a playoff.
Oh, that was horrible. Yeah.
It made zero sense. Embiid, who's always hurt, inevitably got hurt, and that allowed the Heat to beat them in 6 and beat them pretty decisively in 6. It wasn't like this scary, like you knew that he were winning that series. Like he's not a great coach. He gets a lot of credit for the one title he had, but that had nothing to do. That was literally, he's still underwhelmed with that group. That's what Doc Rivers does. He's a good enough guy, and it seems like he knows the game of basketball, but he's not a good coach. Like, and it's pretty clear at this point.
The Embiid thing was the most egregious, that just stands out. The guy's on the court. They're up like 35 points, and he's on the court with 40 seconds to go. And you're asking yourself, that can only lead to a problem. I mean, there would be absolutely zero reason to have this guy on the court. You'd be better off throwing the ball boy in there than having Embiid out there. You couldn't lose the game. So why would you have a guy who's already, vulnerable to injury, with his size and mixing it up inside? I mean, how easy is it for somebody to step on an ankle and, end up rolling their own ankle and maybe missing the next 2 weeks or whatever, or not even coming back as the same player, as appears to be somewhat the case with your man, Jimmy Butler, which we'll see if he can dust himself off tonight and be more of his assertive self against the Celtics. Favored by 8 and a hook, disregarded completely by, 100% dismissed by the basketball world in this series, the Miami Heat. You get 14-1 if you want to bet the Heat to win the championship right now. 14-1, Libby. Are you interested in any of that action, or should I book that for you myself? What do you think?
No, you can. It's going to be tough getting past the Celtics, and I don't see them beating the Nuggets. I think they could beat the Lakers. I don't know if they would beat the Lakers, but I think they could. The Lakers, to me, it feels like the Celtics, where I'd lean Lakers, but they could beat the Lakers. I don't see them beating the Nuggets. Like, the Nuggets literally are the best team in basketball. They
blitzed the Lakers early last night. It was unbelievable. I mean, a performance that was almost frightening in the first half when they went up 18 on the Lakers.
Look, it's actually, and it's such a weird issue to take with a superstar. Their only issue to me is that Jokic is too unselfish. Like, literally, when the game started to creep, Jokic should have taken over, like he did the whole first 3 quarters. And for some reason, in the fourth quarter, he sort of backed out. And maybe it's the defense they played. I think that's a load of garbage. I think Rui Hachimura, who's 6'8", Jokic, who's 7'2", should be able to do whatever the hell he wants with him. So I don't think
is Jokic not big? Is he 7'2"?
He's like 7'1", 7'2".
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Well, he was brilliant last night. I mean, it was an entertaining game. At first, I have a mixed bag of emotions about that, because I do believe that Denver has demonstrated so far through the playoffs that they probably have the best team, and that isn't any genius deduction on my part because they were the best team in the West all year long. And we know that the East is competitive, but I'm not sure that all three of the top teams, as we saw, I mean, all year long, we were talking about what? We were talking about the Celtics, we were talking about Milwaukee, and Philadelphia was kind of in that second tier, but as the third team that had possibilities to come out of the East. And, it's funny, too, because, I mean, the NBA, as much as it's a Cinderella ride with the Heat being an eighth seed, it's still a chalk league. And when you were looking at the four teams that were left, I don't know that it was far-fetched at all. I mean, it would seem like a logical thing that Denver had demonstrated that they were going to be the toughest team to beat of the four teams that were left for the championship. They did show that last night. I mean, they went up 72, what was that, 72-54 in that ball game at halftime. And then, still were substantially ahead in the third quarter. Jokic hits a moon ball at the buzzer in the third quarter, a three-point shot. Turned out to be pretty significant, did it not? As the Lakers did rally back, they found a way. Maybe it was, I'm not sure if you could attribute it to a great Laker defense. I don't know that the Lakers were playing great defense and giving up 132 points in this game.
Was not good.
Yeah. Where they got smacked was on the boards, and Jokic was a big part of that, 21 rebounds, as he far and away led both teams in that category.
The first quarter, though, that's the thing. So Jokic, they're saying
he had like 15 points in the first, 15 boards in the first quarter. I mean, he grabbed every rebound in the first.
He had 12. I don't think it's a lie. I think he had 12 rebounds in the first quarter. They're saying he's 6'11". There's no way Jokic is 6'11". I don't know what that.
But usually they list a guy higher. They give him a couple of inches in height.
Anthony Davis is 6'9", 6'10", and he's at least 2 inches taller than Anthony Davis. So he's at least 7 feet. Maybe he's not 7'2".
They would never. I don't think they would ever underestimate a 7-footer, though. Right? Isn't that a big distinction? When you're
6'11", I find it hard to believe that he's 6'11".
Heights are always exaggerated. Weights are always underestimated.
They're saying he's 6'11", 280, which I don't agree with, but fine. He's 6'11", 280. Rui Hachimura is 6'8", 230, and I think they're giving him generous. I don't think he's 6'8", 230. So. Yeah. That defense that they did work because it was in the middle of the game, but I also think it was the Nuggets do this thing where like they get up and then like Murray and Jokic didn't do anything in the fourth quarter. They both had great games, but in the fourth quarter they got really quiet and the Lakers took advantage. Anthony Davis was fantastic and LeBron was really good. I think if the Nuggets kept the pressure on, I think they would have won that game running away. Like the ESPN broadcast, I thought was really trying to find something that I don't think was there.
They were trying to will the Lakers into a win.
Oh, they found something. If you're the Lakers, you should. It was like your fighter where the one dude is fucking annihilated. Yeah. The other dude standing up. The annihilated dude wins. They're like, yeah, the Lakers really should feel confident after this game. Those Nuggets, I don't know. The Nuggets won.
Well, they got off to such a poor start, the Lakers, and were getting hammered, and that was sustained through three quarters. They did play better, once they got to the fourth quarter, but that happens all the time in the NBA where a team makes a run after getting trounced in the early portion. They made a nice run. They got within three. They had a chance to tie the game on a LeBron James three-point attempt with about inside of 2 minutes to go, which would have been pretty remarkable. It would have been interesting to see how the end game played out under those circumstances. But LeBron missed, and Denver came back and scored. They were going to the free throw line at that point on virtually every trip down the floor, made a couple of free throws and opened it up to 5, and then eventually won the ball game by 6. And not to be unanticipated, Denver was a heavy favorite in that game. I would say this, that you would expect the second game to be closer. And you would probably give the Lakers a shot. And if they can win in Denver, that obviously, I mean, does it take a genius to figure out that that would be a key, that they have to win a game in Denver at some point? And that's a very difficult thing to do. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. I mean, what do you see tonight, Lubie? That's the exciting thing. Because we don't know. I mean, even with the Denver Nuggets and the Lakers series, you thought you had to see one. I believe that's probably true of the Panthers-Carolina series in hockey. Not sure what to expect. I don't know that you can anticipate that the Panthers are going to come out and just be all over this Carolina team. And yet it's not safe to assume that Carolina is so vastly superior that they will control that game one. So that's the interesting thing. You really have to see one first. And I mean, I'm not sure that that's definitively true about this game because the Celtics have exhibited real Jekyll and Hyde characteristics in the postseason so far. The Heat, to a far lesser extent. I mean, the Heat have had only one or two, periods in games where they were really poor. They weren't brilliant in the Knicks series, but maybe that's what it took. I mean, they held the edge over the Knicks the entire time, and eventually closed it out in 6. Can they hang in there with the Celtics? You would think if the Celtics have one of those zombie games like they've been having from time to time in the postseason, sure. All of a sudden you go up. If you go up 1-0. The Heat have been making a habit of that, right? They won both openers in the 2 series they played so far. And, then toyed with the idea of going up 2-0, which they did against the Milwaukee Bucks. No, they lost that second game.
They did the same thing in the series.
Same thing both times. Yeah, they had a chance to go up 2-0. Yeah.
And 3-1. And then where the Bucks, they actually closed out in 5. The Knicks, they almost closed out in 5, but fell just short in 5.
Let's not forget. I mean, there's no way you could see Jason Tatum having that exact same game that he had with the 51 points.
I guess
he didn't miss a shot. I mean, everything he put up went in. I don't know if he's going to be able to duplicate that. I think your real problem, Lubie, with your Miami Heat is just the condition of Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
Can he be that assertive force that really forces the other team to allow wild and wide openings for the other players? And then, the old cliche about the NBA is that the role players always play better at home and aren't as big of a factor on the road. Those guys have to be a factor on the road if the Heat are going to win the series.
100%. I mean, look, that's the thing is we've seen 2 Jimmy Butlers in these playoffs. We've seen Jimmy Butler in the first round. That was the best player in the playoffs. Sorry, Devin Booker, but he was. And we've seen Jimmy Butler in the second round who did just enough to help his team to win. And he was a factor, but he wasn't dominant in any way on both ends. Like there were times on defense where he sort of had lapses, which we never see from Jimmy Butler. And on offense, he ceded it to Bam and Strus and Lowry, really. And it worked. They won the series. That's not going to work in the series. Like Jimmy Butler has to be a guy we've seen in both times versus Celtics and in the Lakers finals and in the Bucks series, like where he takes over. He just has to do that. And I'm all about him letting his guys figure it out. But is it that or is he hurt? Because that's the thing is Dave Hyde underscored what my eyes were telling me, that he's not only hurt.
You've been saying this, man. You've been like Harlan Selznick on this thing.
It's just he looks weird. He like his jumpers. He makes his jumpers. Like that's one thing he does. I don't know if he's Kawhi or Devin Booker, where it's freaking automatic. But he had gotten into these playoffs where if he was taking a mid-range jumper, he was making it, and he wasn't. I don't even know if it was 50%. I think he was less than 50% on them in the last round, and it just looked weird. And even around the basket, like where he usually goes up aggressive and gets his and ones and makes the and ones. He was missing almost every and one, and he wasn't getting a lot of foul calls because he wasn't being aggressive. He wasn't making sure he got the contact. That's not Jimmy Butler, and that's definitely not playoff Jimmy. So to me, the only explanation, I don't give a shit about the defense because the Bucks are the best defensive team in basketball, and they threw everything at Jimmy Butler, and nothing stopped him. So it wasn't Quentin Grimes. It was something's wrong with him. And then Dave Hyde, who's been covering this team, said, yeah, it's not just that he's hurt with the ankle. There's something upper body. Like that's what they think, and that's what it looks like. And I'm like, that does make sense. His shot is weird right now. Like it's off.
Not a good omen. Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, well, without, Jimmy Butler being, a main impetus in anything that he'd do, they're going to be in a big jackpot here against the Celtics, you would have to think. Celtics definitely better than the Knicks team that they just faced. That's for sure. All right, so that happens tonight. We did see Denver win Game 1 against the LA Lakers last night, 132-126. Jokic MVP type of line, 34, 21, and 14, 12 of 17 from the field in the ball game. Jamal Murray, I mean, how do you have a quiet 31? But, somehow he did. And very, very tough. I mean, with that little baseline jumper that he has from the left side, fantastic. I mean, he made, as they say, a shitload of those. And it was enough to offset 2 brilliant performances by Anthony Davis and LeBron James. LeBron James, typically brilliant, 26, 12, and 9, very efficient shooting the basketball. Was not as aggressive as we've seen him in some games. And he did miss a couple of key shots at the end of the ball game. Certainly no fault of his, though, that they lost. Anthony Davis, 40 points, 10 rebounds to try and offset what Jokic was doing. But you would have to say advantage Jokic. And, so far Denver looking very solid. we'll see. Either they, exploit the Lakers even more in Game 2, or somehow the Lakers find a way to squeeze one out there. And if they do, then it's game on due. Interesting. Doc Rivers getting fired. We talked about that. Budenholzer, Monty Williams, Doc Rivers, all fired. What's funny, though, is all of those same guys, their name surfaces for any job openings. Budenholzer is a candidate, supposedly. I don't know. They named like 11 guys. I mean, I think they even had Red Klotz on the list there as possible coaches to take. They might have been better off, the Sixers, with Red Klotz, no? I mean, Klotz could get that. One thing, he may not have won a lot of games against the Globetrotters, but could you say this about Red Klotz? Nobody could get more out of what talent he had than Red Klotz did. To get them to lose that many games was a real skill. Budenholzer, I mean, why would you? Is he so well respected? I mean, he seemed like a buffoon with the Milwaukee Bucks, did he not? I mean, given a roster, a dynamite roster of talent, and seemed to come up short, although it wasn't that long ago he won a championship, right? So, I don't know what to make of that. That Budenholzer right away is in the cycle of guys, the coaching carousel, being linked to the Philadelphia 76ers job. As is Mike D'Antoni. Is he still alive? Mike D'Antoni. Look him up on Google. See if D'Antoni's still alive.
He's alive. They're having him interview for these jobs, but no one's giving him a job.
Mike D'Antoni.
I like Monty Williams. I think Monty Williams got jobs. I think Monty Williams.
I don't know that he. I don't know if he was included in this list of candidates. Nick Nurse was, and I would think of the guys that are available that this guy would be the guy that would be the most sought after. No, Nick Nurse, former Toronto coach, who also got canned after coming very close to making it into the postseason.
Williams and Nurse are the ones I hear the most for the Sixers job. My only problem with Nurse is it's almost like a mini Doc. Like, did he win because Kawhi and Lowry were so fucking great? And also remember, the Warriors, everyone was hurt. Everyone was hurt in that series. By the end of that series, and the Warriors still looked like they were going to win that series until Clay and Kevin Durant were hurt in that series, and Draymond was in that series for the Raptors to win the title.
I thought Nurse was impressive though as a Toronto coach.
I liked him.
Yeah, but
it was just that year. After that year, they precipitously gotten more talent and gotten worse every year. So that's sort of why Nick Nurse fell out of favor in Toronto. I don't know if he's good. I don't know what to do with him. Like, I think he's a good coach.
Mark Jackson wants back in.
I see. Mark Jackson's one I really thought was a good coach. His personality supposedly rubs people the wrong way. The fact that he wasn't given another chance at all when all he did was have success with the Warriors. Like,
well, wouldn't you be happy just making $10 million a year as an announcer or whatever?
Oh yeah, look at Jeff Van Gundy. He hasn't tried at all to get back into coaching.
No. He does look like Vincent Schiavelli too, 100%. The character actor who checked out a few years ago. Night Shift. When he rubs that mustard on the wall there, still a classic scene in terms of food scenes in cinema. All right, so you have the coaching carousel going, and then you know my feeling about this, Lubie. Why do they continue to reward futility with the greatest of assets that you can possibly get, which would be the occasional generational talent that comes along with being a number one pick? And how odd is it that when it comes to big men, San Antonio has been in a position to draft now with the number one overall pick. First, the Admiral, David Robinson. Then Tim Duncan, who looked like, the big fundamental, looked like a surefire talent for many, many years. And look what they were able to accomplish there. They get the oddity of being able to play Twin Towers with those two guys because the Admiral's injury led to their ability to get Duncan later on. And then they get this Wembanyama, who it's hard. You really have no way of knowing. If this guy's going to be able to transform. Remember when Ricky Rubio was deemed to be a cinch superstar in the NBA? Kid was 15 and he was lighting it up in the Spanish pro leagues. And everybody's talking about, oh, man, whoever gets Ricky Rubio, this is, it's going to be unfair, whoever gets this kid. I don't know that he had, he didn't have a terrible NBA career, but certainly, not as distinguished as people would have anticipated when they were raving about him as a 15-year-old. This guy, Wembanyama, is 19 and with a skill set that is extremely unusual for a guy his height, and the versatility seems to just absolutely point him out as, the standout. The only thing that could curtail his chances of being great in the NBA, Louis, is that Jay Billis said that he was even more of an impressive prospect than LeBron James 20 years ago. Hard to imagine, too, that LeBron was having that game after being drafted 20 years ago. Think about that for a second. This guy's running up and down the court like a maniac. But I hate to see it. Right, 20 and what were they? 20-62. They are 22-60. The San Antonio Spurs this year. They've been awful. You keep looking at Popovich and wondering when he's just going to blow his brains out there on the bench. Here's this guy, a Hall of Fame coach who was so crusty all the time, and just gruff, even when he was winning 60 games a season. And now just night after night, they not only were losing, Louis, they were getting trounced every night in San Antonio and on the road. Won 20 ball games all season, and what do they get for it? They get this guy who should make them great for the next 15 years, no? Wembanyama. Seems unfair. Thank God it wasn't the Rockets. You know how we feel about them. Horrible. The Rockets, although the Rockets at least weren't completely tanking. They tried to win some games at the end of the season. Probably led to them letting go of their coach, right? As Tillman Fertitta said, I told you to lose. We want the tall Ken, the Frenchman. Parlez-vous Française. They were eating everything Frances. I mean, even the locker room meal was like chicken Frances. They couldn't get enough French over there in Houston, and unfortunately, they didn't get that number 1 pick. And then it was nice to see them drop all the way down to number 4, Libby, the Houston Rockets. What would you think, Brandon Miller, Alabama guy? He goes number 2. That's not terrible. And who's this other Scoot guy?
Scoot Henderson's legit. The only problem is I don't see why the Blazers would draft like that. He is more of a passer than Dame. He's more of a true point guard than Dame, but Dame needs the ball in his hands. So I don't even know how that would work. Scoot Henderson would, in most drafts, be the number 1 pick. It's just Wembanyama is super.
Well, would you take him if you were Portland and then figure you could deal him, or just deal the pick and try to get more out of it? It does appear, I don't know. I mean, they already had a mock draft out there, the top 14 picks. What was immediately, published there by ESPN and put out there right after the draft order was solidified. So they went to work very quickly on this. It didn't take a genius to figure out probably, the first pick and maybe Brandon Miller, the Scoot man. What is number 3 in most people's minds? And then there are a host of others though, but it seems like you can get a decent player all the way down to the midway point of the draft, no? The Knicks kind of got hosed because Dallas remained at number 10, so they don't have a first-round pick. And they don't appear to have enough talent on the roster right now to win a championship after losing to the Heat. So that probably wasn't beneficial to them at all. They were probably, a little bit dismayed that Dallas ended up retaining that 10th pick. That was part of the Kristaps Porzingis deal from several years ago, and it was atrocious. I mean, that Adam Silver didn't have more to say about Mark Cuban deliberately tanking those last couple of games. That was pure ugliness. Quit rewarding futility. At least with the lottery shakeup and the way they're doing the ping pong ball distribution now, it wasn't a sure thing that the worst team in the league was going to get the top pick. Did they have the worst record? Detroit, did they end up with the worst record in the NBA? Because they got hosed. They got the number 5 pick overall. And, they've been being rewarded for, a complete futility and tanking and all of this stuff and basically being an inept organization. I don't want to say this to Grant Long, but you would have to say the Detroit Pistons have been completely inept over the last several years.
Yeah.
To the point where they're drafting number 1 overall, a couple of times. And now when they really needed it, they failed to come up big in that spot. So I don't know that this is the Jabbar Neal walk draft. But Wembanyama appears to be a prize worthy. The guy almost had a heart attack from San Antonio.
I don't know.
What's that?
I don't know if it's fixed or anything like that, but it is fucking weird that. And Ken and I were talking about this. They instituted the lottery in like the early 80s.
Yes.
So it's been about 40 years. There's been really 6 lotteries with guys that had huge potential that ended up being great. Yes, you had other guys be great. Other guys look really good. You had the Derrick Rose year and the Zion year where people were coming out that teams wanted badly that they turned out to be good, but they weren't generational. You had David Robinson, you had Shaq, you had Tim Duncan, you had LeBron, now Wembanyama, and and you had Ewing, and you had Ewing. Remember, Ewing came out, was a huge fucking.
That was like was that the first one anyone paid any attention to? With
Ewing
the lottery?
I think it was the first lottery. Ewing. Yeah. So you had those 6, right? Of those 6, the Spurs have won 3. Like, that's fucking weird. Like, literally. And again, the other 3 happened when they already had Hakeem, so they didn't need Ewing. They already had David Robinson, so they weren't going to get Shaq, or they already had David Robinson, they weren't going to get Shaq, and then they already had Duncan, so they weren't going to get LeBron. So who knows? Like, it's weird. It's not. I don't know about conspiracy, because like, why would the league want?
Maybe because they know there's nothing to do in San Antonio. And once you've traveled to the Riverwalk and had a couple of tacos the size of your head, there really is very little that would make that city desirable for any reason to visit.
It's just very lucky that of this real 6 generational lotteries we've had, where you knew there was a guy that everyone wanted, and then he ended up being great.
I hope this guy is great. I hope he turns out to be great. Not that I'm happy for San Antonio necessarily.
It's just weird to me.
I'm happy it wasn't Houston. That was the one thing. I would have liked to have seen our friends in Detroit.
I wanted to go to Detroit
because of Grant's presence here on the show. Would have been nice. Speaking of presence on the show, we're going to get into this hockey thing a little bit more deeply. We were trying to figure out, Lubie, and this was interesting. We were trying to figure out who could talk about the whole Bobrovsky phenomenon. Like, who would have some insight into what this guy was all about, at the same time have some kind of feel for the Panther franchise. And so, I'm perusing my network of contacts, of course, and I thought, wow, what about Jeff Rimmer, man? He was calling these Columbus Blue Jacket games when Bobrovsky was great, when he was Vezina Trophy material, and certainly has a familiarity with how the Panther organization was operating in the early stages there. He was the original TV play-by-play voice of the Florida Panthers and stayed in that spot until 2004, when Doug McClain became like the president and general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets as an expansion team, and had a good relationship with Jeff Rimmer and brought him along to be the TV play-by-play man. McClain, I would believe, is long gone from the organization, but Rimmer remains as their TV play-by-play voice. So obviously very well connected with the league. And he's going to join us at 8 o'clock today. Tony Segreto will be back with the program, I want to say, within a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Things are finally coming, to fruition there in his quest to get everything in order. And Tony should be back with us within a couple of weeks. But today at 8 o'clock, we're going to bring you Jeff Rimmer, and I believe by video as well, if that works out. And so original voice of the Florida Panthers on TV. Of course, what was always a subject and a topic on the Neil Rogers show, so became even more of a visible presence here in town. And, good to get him on the show. That'll be a lot of fun because he saw Bobrovsky when he was great. Probably has a pretty good insight into what the hell happened to him once he got to the Panthers. And that'll be a nice perspective to get on the series that gets underway tomorrow night, where Bobrovsky is going to have to do it again. Is it weird? I mean, the fact that we may have come up with the hot goalie in the postseason, or does Bobrovsky revert back now to Bobrovsky of old, and all of a sudden, has so many holes in his game, as we like to say, more holes than an O.J. Simpson alibi? Yeah, I was practicing golf there at midnight. I just happened to get home. So what if I was wearing all black and a black stocking cap and was dripping in blood? I'll get a 9-iron out too, O.J., and see if I couldn't hit a couple of little, soft wedges over the fence there into the neighbor's yard. The hell were you doing out there at 4 a.m. waiting for the limo, man? But anyway, that'll be a lot of fun talking with Jeff Rimmer later on, and also Lenn Robbins going to join us, a degenerate, and now with Bet Basics, and has been with the New York Post, and of course, assortment of other online organizations, including MSG.com, the New York Extra. And well-versed in all sports, and we'll talk to him about what's going on in the NBA. I'm sure a little postscript and obituary autopsy on the New York Knicks Heat series, and all the other happenings, of course, in the Big Apple, where they have his beloved New York Jets now with Aaron Rodgers. Is that going to work, Lubie? What's your belief on that? Just a general belief. I think don't the Jets have to make the playoffs this year? Is that a certainty, or can they find a way to fuck it up? That's the question.
I don't think it's a certainty. The AFC is fucking loaded, so I am very curious at how this works. People have now talked themselves into that the Jets roster was loaded. Okay, I think they had talent in key positions. I would never have called that roster loaded, and I get it. It was all because the quarterbacks were dreadful. The quarterbacks were dreadful, so you would think they would have won another 2-3 games if they had at least decent quarterback play. They've also added some talent this offseason. They should be better. They should be a playoff contender. But so have the Dolphins added talent. So have the Ravens added talent. So have the Chargers continued to grow as a team that had a ton of talent. The Bills and the Chiefs are still there. The Broncos brought in a Hall of Fame coach, so maybe he can figure out what the hell's wrong with Russell Wilson. Because if they can figure that out, their roster was actually loaded. It's whole they're running because it's a New York team thing. It feels like the Knicks. Like, I think the Jets are good, and I think they should be interesting. Would I put them as a Super Bowl contender? No. Like, I don't know what they're doing. And the fact that they put them ahead of the Dolphins, who were in the playoffs last year, who, if not for injuries, would have been a 12-win team last year. I don't know. It's a weird thing that they're doing because they want to prop up a New York team, and I don't understand it. We haven't seen Aaron Rodgers in a new city ever, and we haven't seen Aaron Rodgers sane in like 3 years.
Never seen a guy look happier.
We'll see. It's happening.
Have you ever seen a guy look like he has adapted to the new way of life and looked happier about it? I remember how disheveled and
it's a disaster.
Mike Mayo's favorite word, disgruntled he looked.
Yep.
When he was coming to training camp for the Packers, and you knew he'd already packed it in. I mean, all of the stories would lead you to believe that he had checked out. We're not psychiatrists here. I mean, we can't say for sure. But it did appear, body language-wise, like he was far more detached than he was into, rallying the Packers. And then the weird part about it was he came on at the end of the season, so did the team, and then they blew that game to Detroit. And that was it. But I really believe that all of this was triggered by Matt LaFleur's decision to kick that field goal in the NFC Championship game when they were taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you're going to kick a meaningless field goal rather than take a shot at going out there and taking command of the game by scoring a touchdown in that spot on a fourth down play. And what did they have? What was it, like fourth and long? Not even sure how many yards they had to go.
It was like fourth and medium. It was like fourth. I think it was like fourth and six.
But to kick the field goal and then go for the cheap, trick of, the onside kick immediately after, the odds of that happening were 0.0 or so it seemed. I mean, very, very prohibitive as compared to giving Aaron Rodgers one shot to throw the ball. And, when you're telling your guy, I mean, they basically neutered him right there. They're telling, a guy that's considered maybe to be the greatest quarterback of all time, among the greatest. And you're telling him, hey, I'm not going to give you one more throw. I'd much rather do this cockamamie strategy that's doomed to failure and has never worked, probably in the history of the National Football League under these circumstances. But I'm going to try that instead of letting you throw one pass into the end zone. Okay, Aaron? That was after drafting Jordan Love, who we don't know. I mean, does anybody know if this guy's going to be any good? Nobody has any idea, do they? Seemed like, overall that might have loomed as a rather large mistake unless he ends up being a Hall of Famer. All right. Speaking of an atmosphere, the Marlins game last night, I flicked it on. I'm trying to figure out, am I really going to watch the draft lottery show? And it's usually the worst piece of television. It's worse than Rain Out Theater, isn't it? You never really got to enjoy Rain Out Theater, where they only aired two Jimmy Stewart movies. That was it. You had one of two choices. Monty Stratton's story, which was great because it was at least a sports movie. About the guy with the crippled leg. He has a wooden leg, and he goes out there and he's pitching in the All-Star game, makes a comeback, falls in love with June. What was her name? Was it June Allison? Was that her name? Or no, that was Johnny Allison. Johnny Callison. They had Carbine Williams was the other movie. And that was it. That's all you ever saw of Rain Out Theater. But eclipsing that in terms of boredom level, because you couldn't wait for the game to come back on instead of watching these two crummy movies all the time when it was raining. And you'd already faked your way out of school with a stomachache so you could watch the Yankees take on like the White Sox or something on WPIX. And the draft lottery show, though, that was the slowest moving, most meaningless show. It's only featured, and we pointed this out for years, and everybody was on board with us, right? Everybody inside basketball was aware that the only real entertaining quotient or value of that show was seeing Elgin Baylor writhe in agony as the Clippers got hosed on another number one overall pick and knew they were going to get stuck with somebody. And then when they did have the number one overall pick, who'd they take? Michael Olowokandi? Was that their mistake? Clippers?
The one, yeah. I don't know if they had another number one. The one they did.
I mean, imagine that your number one pick, your only one in history, is Michael Olowokandi, who had what? Did he average 5 points a game in his NBA career? I don't think so. But anyway, and I'm watching that last night, and I figure, well, let me flip over to the Marlins game, see if they're still on, and they were. Your man Luzardo is having a pretty good season. So you've been talking about Marlins pitching being suspect, which it is, with Alcantara getting rocked every time he goes out and takes the mound. But Luzardo was pretty good last night. Of course, they lift him for our reliever in the eighth inning after 7 innings of really quality ball. And that guy immediately gets blasted, lit up for 3 runs. And you have, a deficit against the Washington Nationals, who stink. You're thinking you don't want to be losing these ball games. And then with 2 away, and that's Hunter Harvey, the son of Brian Harvey, the original Marlins closer.
I love that.
He's on the mound. He's throwing nothing but gas. I mean, he's got the wicked splitter, too, like his old man must have shown him this pitch when he was a kid. Because it had that action on it that you're like, wait a minute, man. What do you got in there? They literally a gyroscope in the ball. It's incredible. Holy Mike Scott. I mean, this thing was going all over the place. No one could touch it. And the Marlins then rocked him for 3 straight hits, including a Jorge Soler 2-run walk-off home run. Marlins now 13-1 in 1-run games this year, and are back, I believe, at 500 at 41-41, or at 21-21. Is that correct, Lubie? 21-21. Is that the record?
Right now. Yes, they were 20-21. Now they're 21-21. Yes, sir.
Our drive for 75 probably looking pretty good. I don't know what was the over/under number on the Marlins this year. Do we have any idea? Did we ever even check that out, or were we so sick of losing that bet that we just
went up? I think
got all about it.
I think it was high 70s. I think it was like 76 or 77.
All right, not looking too bad. I mean, you would have to say that that's a radical achievement for this team to come out of the gate a quarter of the way through the season at 500. Not bad. And 13-1 represents, just an incredible turnaround in 1-run ball games, where they set a record last year. The Guinness people were on hold the entire season, saying, "Are you kidding me? They lost another one." Where they were somewhat upside down, I think, by like 30 games in terms of 1-run losses last year. So I don't know what to make of Jorge Soler, Jim Sarney. I really don't. He bugs me about Soler all the time. He does have some dramatic home runs that have been huge contributing factors in wins, including the ultimate contributing factor, and that is you walk off and win the game. He also, was struggling around the Mendoza line most of the season, although now up to 238. He stranded, right? The old joke. He had more people stranded than they did on Gilligan's Island in his previous 4 at-bats. He was coming up with the bases loaded and 2 away, ground ball out. I don't know if he struck check swing out with a couple of runners in scoring position. He was a disaster early in the game. But do you make up for it in dramatic fashion with 1 swing? What do you think, Libby? Let him off the hook, Jorge Soler?
No, I mean,
that still loom as a big Kim Ang mistake.
Yeah, I mean, all the Marlins. Look, the funny thing is, even the moves that at one point looked good eventually look bad. And I'm not talking about Alcantara. The dude got you a Cy Young, so that's a winning move for them. But Jazz Chisholm isn't. Jazz Chisholm was one move that was like, okay, yeah, you gave up a guy who's turned out to be a great pitcher, and he was really good for you and Gallen. But you got a young guy who can seemingly do everything and be the face of an organization. Well, when has he been that? Chisholm, literally, whenever he plays, is good, but he's not great. This year, he hasn't been good at all, and he never plays. And lo and behold, what came out yesterday, he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks, which is what he's done every single year of his career. So, no, I mean, and I get it. I don't think that was a Kim Ang move, but it was a Marlins move, and they all seem to.
Oh, yeah, typical Marlins move where we get the worst end of, the best deal they make is usually a raw deal. That's been part of the problem there. Anyway, overachieving as an organization at this point, I would say, for what they put out there. This Louis Arise has been a hell of an acquisition here, hitting 386, had a couple of hits last night, including keeping the rally going with a run scoring single after Cooper had doubled off the wall 2 away, and Harvey looked to be untouchable. He finally throws the gopher ball to Soler, who really, did wrap this thing all the way into Biscayne Bay. It was great. All right, so that was very exciting. It was interesting, though. You talk about an atmosphere. So I tune in, and, how many people are left, in the 9th inning of a game where you're trailing at Marlins or at Lone Shark Park? Like nobody, right?
Not a lot, no, especially on a weeknight.
A few people scattered. Yeah, it's a Tuesday night, so there are a few people there, most of whom are, and this is the thing that really, throws me now about society. You're paying big money to sit in like these luxury seats behind home plate, and you never watched or look up and watch the game. Everybody's on their phone, like you are now, Libby. everybody's on their phone. Now you're doing something here and they're responsible
Something,
for
just constantly
keeping
checking
the
my
show
phone.
going. That's understandable. But these people are at a ball game paying to be entertained by somebody, and then they can't get away from their phone like a little kid, right?
It's the end of a game. I mean, who's not watching the end of the game?
End of the game. There's 2 away. You're just rallying. Everybody should be on their feet. They're all sitting down, and the guy, it's a 3-2 count. You're figuring and Birdie had come in a pinch run for a rise and stole second base. So now you have a runner in scoring position. You're taking a single, ties the game, extra innings. Let's get really into this thing. And everybody's asleep, like fast asleep, and all of a sudden you hear, and if you watch the tape, it is in a very delayed reaction. The crowd finally rises. What crowd was left rises to its feet and goes, "Oh my, we won the game!" But dead silence until you could hear the sound of the ball hitting the bat because there wasn't another single sound, not a decibel of noise in the stadium at that point, except you could hear people yawning, literally,
Yes, yes.
and passing out. It's crazy. That is the most dead stadium. You would watch some Oakland A's games, when they had a crowd of like 3,000, but I have never seen anything quite like that. As the guy is hitting a game-winning walk-off homer, you couldn't have won the game in more dramatic fashion on a 3-2 count with 2 away in the ninth inning. And literally, people were sitting on their hands. The 18 people that were left around home plate. All right, we're going to come back with more. Jeff Rim is going to join us. We'll get some perspective on Bobrovsky, Florida Panthers, the organization, and the NHL. I'm sure Jeff, obviously, still involved in play-by-play, well-versed in everything that's going on around the league. So we'll get his insight into both the Panthers series coming up against the Carolina Hurricanes and also the Las Vegas Golden Knights going against the Dallas Stars. The hockey, shoot the puck, shoot the puck. That's coming up. And Lenn Robbins later on as well. I did want to mention, too, that has Ron DeSantis decided anything about this skill crane issue that I brought up?
No.
You want to ban something, ban skill crane from kids' places. Now they have a nice little setup for this at this Bonefish Max, which I think
arcade.
They did a great job. They got a little separate room in there, and all the little kids go running in there. And look, they're going to win something for the buck. So the kid's satisfied. It doesn't matter that it's like a 5-cent plastic duck. Very cute little thing there. We ended up with over 100 of those on our table, Lubie. Plastic ducks. If you need a plastic duck, I have like 1 million of them. We all took like pockets full of them home. And I think twice that they hit on like the larger prize.
Nice. Okay.
That was it. Yeah, twice.
That game is that's the
what
worst.
kind? Do they use Flex Seal to glue this shit down?
They just make it like bottom heavy. They do something that where it makes you think you have it, because that's the thing is it's not like you just totally miss. Like it'll grab it,
You always grab something and it kind of hovers there.
and you're like yes, and it's like boom. It's like what the hell?
Brick, yeah.
Every time.
It's kind of like those guys that cheated in a fishing tournament, put the lead weights inside the fish, and they got caught. Man, it's an interesting shot if you ever see it on YouTube, where the guy, that accuses him of cheating, then takes a knife, slashes open the fish, and he finds like a pound of lead weight in there. But they usually have like a bowling ball, that's the kind of thing you're trying to lift out of there with these fragile little tweezers that they give you that, aren't exactly, the greatest thing to grip something with. And kids, it's more addicting than slot machines for kids.
Addictive. You can.
My God. We had to go through $150 last night on Skill Crane.
If you start with that game, you're never going to make the money you put into it. Like you'll finally get a prize. Yes. And it's like a $3.
Right. Which the kid forgets and leaves on the table anyway. $150 could have gone to the toy store.
It's such degeneracy is really the way to.
You think gambling is just a natural instinct of even like the most innocent of 5-year-olds?
It does have a gambling like
it's all gambling. That's it. That's the thrill of it. Let's face it. Right? You're putting up money to see if you can win something, even though the ultimate prize is not worth as much as the money that you're investing.
Look, when you guys win these dime, 2 dime, it's amazing. But again, we're ignoring how much money went into that.
It hardly offsets the pain and the bloodshed of a life of degeneracy. Don't let me know that number, Lubie. I really don't want to know it. Look, I know it's a losing number. I'm not going to try to fool anybody into thinking that I'm winning money lifetime gambling. I am not. Skill Crane, I used to have some, can you use the word skill? I was fairly adept at Skill Crane, and yet still, I'm a lifetime loser. And the worst, the most hideous application of the game, when I was in Atlantic City last time, they had a Skill Crane
Adults version.
casino game.
That's just combining
Well,
worlds.
what the fuck? Blackjack isn't tough enough for you people?
That's just like cocaine or crack. It's
Worse.
like,
Because it's kind of like the thing, the He-Man test, at a carnival where the girl you're with says, "Hey, why don't you see if you can ring the bell?"
yeah, you
And you're
punch
thinking, I got a bad wrist, man. I got a really limp wrist here. I would do it for you, sweetheart, but I'll just buy you the bear. It'd be better to stave off the embarrassment of losing at this carnival game. That one's impossible, though. And they have a little like plastic egg shell. And inside each egg, you can see a denomination of cash, including like some sticks, $100 bill. But the most you could win is 100, and it's $5 a throw. Can you imagine?
Exactly.
And literally, man, even if you grip the thing in a vice, that egg is not coming to the door where it ultimately is released. I never saw one person take an egg out of the machine there. Not one. So, impossible, right? Worst application ever. Should be illegal.
Yes.
If Ron DeSantis wasn't running for president and he was doing his job, he would ban this. Even though at Bonefish Max, it's much cheaper to let your cell phone be the babysitter for the kid.
Oh, yeah.
They can't get enough of it either. I mean, they were just running back and forth there. Even Liam hit me up later on. I came over very sweetly and said, "Grandpa Defo, do you have any ones?" And I had to show him my bankroll to prove that I didn't.
Exactly.
And he was thinking, yeah, I can go to the front and get change at 20 at the Forest. I mean, what the hell are you talking about? Skill Crane. Evil connotations to that game. Who came up with that? They should be imprisoned, incarcerated for life. Skill Crane. All right. It shows you, like I said, there's a degenerate in all of us.
Yes.
Even the sweetest of children. You're looking at, and what do they want to do, Lubie? They want to gamble.
Yes, gambling, 100%.
All right, Jeff Rimmer going to join us here shortly. That's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to talking to Jeff. And later on, Lenn Robbins on the program. 12 o'clock today, the Mike Mayo Lunchbox Show goes. And he hasn't been eating on the show lately. What's wrong with this guy?
He has a lot going on during the morning. So then by the time he gets on air, he doesn't have food. Because yesterday would have been a perfect day. Like I think the silly food holiday days are dumb, but it's still nice fodder for the show. So like him eating some messy ass barbecue.
Yeah, ribs right there on the air.
Wheelhouse, drinking the barbecue sauce, which is we've seen him do.
There are a lot of places. I mean, where would be the top place to get ribs? I mean, at this point in time.
And it's why it's a topic I shouldn't bring up to people who are aficionados, because Ken and Mayo are very similar in this regard. Like they have a weird thing with barbecue. They're like very. I'm open-ended when it comes to barbecue. I like the barbecue that a lot of people consider shitty barbecue.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I grew up on, the sweet molassesy barbecue.
Sure.
What I grew up on. So like I am aware it's like
it's a matter of taste.
Eating your steak with ketchup. Yeah, it's not when it comes to the great barbecuers worldwide, it's not really accepted as the great barbecue. But I don't know what to tell you. I like it. Mayo is very picky about barbecue. So I don't know. People are weird about barbecue. Like they get very defensive about barbecue. So I don't know what the best place is. That's why I just wanted to hear about some places, because I never eat barbecue anymore. And I'm always curious, like, where are some good places? Not the best or the worst, just what exists, because I'd like to try the different kinds of barbecue.
I was surprised how much barbecue was available here in South Florida. It wasn't that big in California, barbecue. California was more, Mexican food. You can get great burritos, tacos anywhere. Hot dogs, were big with Pinks. And fried chicken was big. They had a chain there that was fantastic. Pioneer Chicken, probably the best fried chicken I've ever had anywhere. And that was out of like a small chain restaurant that was, I think they only had like 3 or 4 stores in the LA area. And they weren't big anywhere else. Too bad went out of business. But I came here. First place I ever went for ribs. I guess, Bobby Rubino's was one. Tony Roma's was big. But the People's Ribs, now defunct, Liberty City. That was it. That was, the first time I experienced that thing with the mustard sauce, Libby. Blew me away. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The rib sandwich was a weird concept where it comes with like 2 slices of Wonder Bread. What would be the need for that? Sop up the sauce?
Yeah, well, that's when you go to these places and you get
2
barbecue.
slices of like just
It's
like the
always
whitest of white bread at
great
the
mashed
people's ribs.
potatoes,
Yeah.
great collard greens, great fried chicken or ribs, and then it'll have Wonder Bread. It's like, what?
Yeah. Wonder Bread.
It's like, where did that come
Not even Wonder Bread, like generic white bread.
from? It's like straight up regular white bread that you have
Yeah.
like 7.
2 big slices of this. I mean, I'm not inclined to eat that under any circumstances. Are you at this point? Used to smear with a little cream cheese and jelly, but no longer. All right, we have to run. Jeff Rimmer going to join us here in just a couple of minutes. Looking forward to that. As I said, Tony should be back with us within a couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to that as well. Lenn Robbins later on the program. I'm Jeff DeForest. That's Mike Lubitz, and we will be back with more here on the Defo Show in a moment. Now that
The time.
it's 7:56.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Let's hope we're dead wrong about a lot of things. That could be another book that we put out. Let's hope we're dead wrong about a lot. Let's go. The end is near. You can tell the end is near, man. You could definitely do that.
The modern day odd couple, Defo and Lubie, are on now. It is, of course, the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the program, the Defo Show here on a Wednesday. Jeff DeForest and Mike Lubitz. In a couple of minutes, we'll be joined by Jeff Rimmer. And, wow, there he is. I feel like this is a reunion of sorts. I didn't realize it had been so long. 2004, Jeff Rimmer, at the time, the TV play-by-play voice since the inception of the Florida Panthers, leaves with Doug McClain for the Columbus Blue Jackets and still is there in that capacity as a play-by-play voice of the Blue Jackets. And, wow, it's been 20 years almost, Jeff. How are you, my friend? Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. And Defo, miss you, obviously, and miss South Florida, although I have made my permanent home here, just leaving for the hockey season. And my wife comes up from time to time during the course of the season. And we're fortunate to play 1 or 2 games a season here against the Panthers. I'm really enjoying the run here right now. In fact, I've gone to every game, sitting in the press box alongside some of the scouts, including former general manager Dale Talon, who's a friend from way back when he was a broadcaster. So it's great to see you. It's great to be in South Florida, as always.
All right, well, good to have you on. I mean, we were thinking, geez, who has some kind of perspective on both the Panther organization and what's going on in the postseason here, still in touch with the game, and of course, Sergei Bobrovsky, who,
Yeah.
I mean, is he second only to Lazarus in resurrecting himself from the dead? This guy, honestly, Jeff, he had become like a joke here, which is really strange because you saw him, I mean, make that incredible run that pushed him to the forefront where Dale Talon said, hey, if I'm going to solve my goaltending problem, it doesn't matter how much money, this is the guy.
Well, there's no question that he is a world-class goaltender. It's unfortunate, though, that things kind of fell by the wayside with the Blue Jackets. He won 2 Vezina trophies in Columbus. He was very comfortable there. But if you recall, the negotiations to get a new long-term deal kind of fell by the wayside with the situation that he was looking to become the highest-paid goaltender in the National Hockey League at the time. Carey Price was and is, even though he hasn't played for the last several years. He wanted $10.5 million. He got the $10 million deal here, close to the $10.5 million. almost landed here with Artemi Panarin, the bread man, which would have been quite a coup for Dale Talon. And, of course, the Florida Panthers. It didn't happen. He got off to really a horrendous start. And I think the problem was, and I know Dale told him several times, hey, forget the $10 million. There's no more pressure on you. Just go out and play your game. But it's great to see him. I've been kind of texting with him here during the earlier series. And I think the Panthers have got a great opportunity, not only to do what we did in '96 and get to the Stanley Cup final, but quite frankly, I got to think they've got an excellent chance to win it all. How about that?
I'm with you. I mean, they've already knocked off the Boston Bruins, Toronto Maple Leafs, and all of these glamorous scores. They shut them down. Seem to be playing with, and you're familiar with this term from your years here in South Florida, especially association with Neil Rogers. They're playing with a lot of chutzpah at this point.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Neil. I think about him often, and I think about you and your association with Neil. And of course, he was such a great hockey fan. He would love this run right now. Might have been pretty critical of Bobrovsky in previous seasons, but it's great to see. And I tell you, he would be thrilled to be going to FLA Arena, as it's now called, on a nightly basis when the Panthers are there. And I can't wait for the start of the series, to be frank. And Neil was a special person, as we all know.
All right, so Bobrovsky's on the sidelines, and naturally, we've all become hockey experts over the last few weeks here, Jeff, after barely seeing a period of hockey all season long. But and we're horrified when this Alex Lyon all of a sudden, we were saying he became Dr. Strangelove. He made a lot of really poor plays with the glove, especially. It looked like Dick Stewart out there at first base, and he gets pulled, and you're thinking we're doomed. We can't bring in this Bobrovsky guy. We've seen it before where guys make dramatic turnarounds. Is there anything you see in the way that Bobrovsky's playing that would lead you to believe that, make you think, hey, that makes sense that he all of a sudden has turned it around and maybe the hottest goalie in the tournament that's left?
Well, he is. There's no question about that. Dallas's goaltender has certainly been superb for the most part, but the most consistent by far is Bobrovsky, and I think he's playing under control. Sometimes goaltenders start guessing, particularly here with the pressure on of the Stanley Cup playoffs, but he is letting everything come to him. He's not overplaying the puck. He looks very comfortable in the net. And I'll tell you, I give a lot of credit, and talking to Dale and talking to other people in the Panthers organization, I think the goaltending coaches by committee here, led by Roberto Luongo, has had a steadying influence on him, and I think that's really helped Sergei. But the biggest thing for me was getting over the fact that people, when they think of Bobrovsky, they look at the dollar signs and it's 10 million. And that put a great deal of extra pressure on him. I think as well, the defense is playing extremely well in front of them. And it's not just the blue liners, because when you made the big trade to get Tkachuk last year, I thought you lost a pretty key defenseman. But others have stepped up. And I think the forwards, particularly the forwards under Paul Maurice, who I know very, very well. Paul and I got to be very close when he was in Carolina. And oddly enough, he called me. I don't know if people realize this, but in the interim, after getting fired for the second time in Carolina, he called me and he said, hey, when you get fired twice by the same team, it's time to move. And what he decided to do was move his family closer to Windsor, Ontario, where his wife's from. And at that time, he was doing some TSN work in Canada, and he wanted to be reasonably close. So Columbus, Ohio was the destination. And he was actually a neighbor for the better part of a year before moving on to Winnipeg as the head coach there. So, yeah, I think that it's been a collective effort. The coaching, and very short order here, just to kind of answer your question, I think it's the coaching. I believe it is the forwards coming back and helping the defensemen, and the real great work of the defensemen, and ultimately the goaltending by committee, or goaltending coaching by committee, certainly made a big difference there as well.
Jeff, you referenced the 96 team, and then you also referenced the trade to get Tkachuk. And what's interesting is that 96 team, they may not have had big names, but they were tough. Mellenby was tough. Skrudlin was tough. Jovanovski tough. Van Beesbrook, the goalie, was as tough nails as any netminder you'd ever see. And they played for him. Tkachuk, it's funny, is a superstar, but you wouldn't know it. He's picking fights. He's picking up his guys. He's playing both ends of the ice, which again is rare to see from a guy with his offensive abilities. And it feels like he brought some of that toughness that this organization seemed to be missing that they had back then in 1996.
No, there's no question. And it wasn't just toughness. Let's be honest here. There wasn't a great deal of skill on that team in 96, but there was character. There was heart. Well, why are you laughing? It's the truth.
Yeah.
Truth is the truth.
But that team in 96, you look at the leadership there. You talked about Mellenby and Skrudland, who were the captains during that regime. You look at a Dave Lowry, who's now coaching out in Seattle, and I give him a lot of credit for the resurgence of the second-year team to make it all the way almost through the second round, losing in Game 7 the other night. It was Van Beesbrook in goal, and I still get chills thinking of the 96 final in the old Miami Arena. The Blue Jackets, got the Blue Jackets on the brain. After all, I'm heading to the 20th season there, but the Panthers, the Florida Panthers, lost 3 straight before that fourth and final game at Miami Arena and went to overtime. Uwe Krupp, remember that name? Scored the game-winning goal that night, and boy, I'll tell you, devastating. It was just a great, great effort. Patrick Waugh and the Colorado Avalanche skate off the ice. Adam Foote, who later became captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets in a trade to Columbus, and I'll tell you, that team was just filled with character and leadership, and you're right, grit. But this team is exceptionally skilled. You got Barkov. You mentioned Tkachuk. Yeah, fine two-way game. He is the missing link as far as their run here in the Stanley Cup final. But Sam Bennett, boy, he has been very impressive for me, and that was a terrific pickup. Then you just look through the roster, and they've got skill on really all 4 lines. Luosterainen is a player that's impressed me here through the Stanley Cup run. So, yeah, there's a great deal of talent on this team. And they've got the grit. It's the total package. And if Bobrovsky continues to play as well as he has, I'm telling you, I think there's a good chance that the Stanley Cup might find its way here to South Florida.
Fill us in a little bit on Paul Maurice, because we couldn't have misgauged this guy anymore. You know how we are, Jeff, in this business. Quick to come to conclusions that a guy's a stiff. And it wasn't going well throughout most of the season. And Maurice didn't say much. We had labeled him the French Joe Philbin. Which couldn't be any further from the correct characterization of this guy. And now we see him, he couldn't be any more of a cool customer. Yet been in the league 25 years. A lot of people thought it was a weird choice to be the head coach here. What are some of the things about him that you think have made him successful?
Well, for one, he is amongst the all-time leaders in coaching victories, but he'll be the first to tell you I've almost lost as many as I've won. And it's a situation that Maurice is a guy that's a good study. He has been successful as a coach, but he could never get to the promised land and win a Stanley Cup. But I think that he pretty well decided that was it as far as coaching after he stepped down as coach of the Winnipeg Jets mid last season. I believe it was around December. And I think he pretty well decided that was it. He stayed kind of away from hockey there for a while, then started watching games, wasn't thinking in terms of coming back to coach. And then he gets the call from Bill Zito, who, by the way, took his training in Columbus as the assistant general manager, an exceptionally good friend of our general manager, Jarmo Kekalainen. In fact, the two were partners in an agency representing players not too long ago. But he obviously stuck his neck out, not bringing back a guy that finished amongst the best coaches in the National Hockey League, taking the Panthers to a President's Trophy last year. So it was a gutsy move bringing Maurice in. But I'll tell you, he with that time away, I think really got refreshed. And he's a great coach. He's a great technician. And boy, I'll tell you, he outcoached the Boston Bruins for certain. And Jim Montgomery's probably going to win the Coach of the Year, the Adams Trophy for Coach of the Year. And I believe that had they done that vote now, Paul Maurice would certainly get a great deal of consideration because he's done a terrific job.
You have to love this game, Jeff. I mean, I see why you've been in love with it forever. I mean, I've been following it since the 6-team league, but it's just so wacky, so abstract what happens. An 8th seed like this, knocking off the Bruins after being down 3-1, coming back and really, just outplaying the Toronto Maple Leafs, even if it was by a slight margin. Still, we're in command of that series. And now going against the Carolina Hurricanes, who we know what about, Jeff Rimmer. I mean, Lubie and I pretty much, saying, hey, yeah, they're a good team. When they got a couple of veteran goalies there and they rotate, but we don't know much about them. So how do you size up the matchup between these two teams?
They're a great team. They're always there. Rod Brind'Amour is their coach, and he coaches the way he played and demands 100%. That's a skilled team. There are no weaknesses there. They've got a strong blue line that also contributes offensively, and their forwards, led by Sebastian Aho. They also have a situation where I understand here, perhaps early in the season, if not the first game tomorrow night, Tara Vinen, who was slashed and had a broken hand and had surgery a little over 4.5 weeks ago, he could return. They're still not completely healed. Pacioretty, who was signed in the offseason and retore his Achilles, he is out for the series, as is Svechnikov, who's an exceptionally skilled player. So it's going to be an interesting series, and two coaches that obviously will try to get an arm up on the other. It should be a great series. They're a defensive team. They score at opportunistic times, and you better believe that Jordan Staal, who is their shutdown centerman, he'll have his hands full with that Panther offense.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And as you said, I mean, there's a legitimate reason to believe, and why not us, that maybe the Panthers can score their first Stanley Cup. The Western Series, it touched on the parallel between the Seattle Kraken and that 95-96 Panther team. What is it about the expansion process in the NHL where you have Vegas? You almost had the Kraken in there going against them. Seems like the conditions are much more favorable for expansion teams than they were when the Panthers got started.
Bingo. Obviously, the expansion price is a lot higher.
Yeah.
I don't remember what Wayne Huizenga, who for me is one of the best owners, and it was one of the best owners in pro sports. Not everybody might agree in South Florida based on what happened with the baseball team, but I'll tell you, Wayne was a special person. And again, when you start talking about expansion fees, why Vegas paid $500 million. Seattle paid $800 million to get into the league. And let me tell you, as a result, if you're going to pay that kind of bread, you better give them something. And both Vegas and Seattle were given much better players to select from as far as the expansion draft is concerned than what Florida, Columbus and Minnesota, when they joined the league, got. So, yeah, you're going to charge them $500 and $800 million. You better give them something for their money.
You know, that would be our favorite destination. And we would have to consider maybe applying for credentials to the games if Vegas ends up playing the Panthers. You've been there.
Knowing you.
Yeah, I mean, that atmosphere seems insane, though, Jeff. How would you describe it? And I would imagine if it was a Stanley Cup final series or even this conference finals, the Las Vegas home ice advantage, even though they've lost there, the crowd just seems to be incredible there.
No, the crowd is incredible. Their in-game ops I'll tell you, the presentation that they put on before the game is second to none in the National Hockey League. They really get the fans jacked up. There was some question as to whether or not they would be successful initially. The first really major professional sports to go to the Vegas area. And then they get an NFL football team, the Raiders, and they thought, boy, this is going to perhaps put a dent into their season ticket base, but that hasn't happened at all. The fans are just totally excited. They love the team there. They support the team. And I got to tell you, I'm in Columbus, Ohio. Nothing bigger in Columbus than the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yes.
But I got to tell you, I did a talk show for the first few years when I moved to Columbus with Kirk Herbstreit. And Herbie, one of the greatest people I know, undoubtedly the top college football expert by far, and really one of the great analysts in any sport. Herbie got attached to hockey, and honest to God, he told me on more than one occasion, I'd like to have $5 for every time he said it, that there's nothing better, including a national championship in football, than going to the Stanley Cup playoffs. He loved hockey, loves the Blue Jackets. He's moved back and forth, moved to Nashville for a while. He's moved back to Ohio, and he's always texting me and saying, what's going on? The Blue Jackets had just a horrendous season this year. What's going on with my Jackets? He's got to face Chris Fowler, and Fowler's a big Colorado Avalanche fan. coming from that area. So they're going back and forth. But it's been an embarrassing season for the Blue Jackets, and hopefully there's better days ahead.
Yeah, it does look like a lot of fun out there. All right, how do you size up that Western Series? Stars, life and death to beat the Kraken, and Vegas, had a pretty good time of it actually. They handled Edmonton. No, you would have to say with relative ease compared to what expectations might have been at the start of the series.
Well, what happens normally in the playoffs, it comes down to goaltending, and I think it will in that series. And I've got to give an edge to Dallas with Ottinger, one of the great young goaltenders in the NHL. He has come up here in the last couple of seasons, and especially this season, a big reason Dallas is where they are. I'll tell you, it's going to be a great series. I do not expect it to be a short one. I would suggest, as Vegas just finished up with Seattle, a 7-game series is possible. I would maybe give a slight edge to Dallas. They've got a veteran team. They got a guy by the name of Pavelski. They got Jamie Benn up front, but Pavelski, boy, he's a winner. And there's nobody that tips pucks better. He led this last series. In fact, was injured, had a concussion, came back in the first game and scored 5 goals. So Pavelski, Jamie Benn, Sagan, got a lot of skill up front. They've got one of the great young defensemen in the National Hockey League in Heiskanen. So I give them a slight edge over Vegas. Sorry to spoil your party.
Oh, man, we're really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Vegas. Yeah, well, hey, it's a toss-up series, but you've got to give the edge to Dallas based on that goaltending
all
edge
right.
for me.
Sounds good. Hey, Jeff, a pleasure, man. Great stuff. I mean, great insight into all of the different things that we would have had no clue about, but would have speculated upon nonetheless. And really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of fun. And thanks so much for being with us. I can't believe it's been, 19 years in Columbus?
Next season is my 20th year with the Columbus Blue
That's
Jackets. After 11 here, the first 11 years with the Panthers. So, but let's not talk about age in this one.
Well, you're still going strong, so that's great. Thanks so much for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Anytime, Defo. And again, when you reached out, I immediately thought of our association, yours and mine, with Neil Rogers. I miss him.
Oh,
terribly.
yeah. I mean, what an ambassador he was for the game, though. I mean, you would have to think, as much as he used to knock everybody, and especially Huizinga, that, he did as much to put hockey on the map down here as anybody when he was talking about it constantly.
Question.
Yeah, it was great.
No
Used to
question.
drive the program director crazy. What? Another hockey show? What, are you out of your mind? But
We used to go in the studio at WIOD with McLean. I'd go down with McLean.
Yeah.
He wanted McLean on the show, and I'd drive Doug because he couldn't even drive Doug McLean to the Miami Arena. He didn't know where he was going, and I had to drive him.
What's McLean doing now? He was great. He was also tremendous in terms of bringing a community
he
involved.
called. You may have heard the phone. You may have heard the phone ring. That was him.
Oh, yeah?
He's a pest. He calls 5 times a day to talk hockey. He's in PEI right now, where he goes for the summers. He tried his hand at broadcasting. They used to call him the angry analyst. He's now retired, but he still's got his opinions. And boy, I'll tell you, some of them are way out there.
All right.
Hey, he's never going to change.
Well, say hello to him from us, because we were always big fans of Doug McLean. He was great with the media when he was down here as a head coach. Thanks, Jeff. It was a pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
All right.
Be well.
Jeff Rimmer, ladies and gentlemen. God, he has some insight into the league, huh? What would you say, Lubie?
He knows his hockey, boy. That was fun.
My goodness, man. Bobrovsky and all of that stuff about the French Joe Philbin. Well, we couldn't have been any more. I mean, we have that clip about being dead wrong. We could not have been any more dead wrong about this guy. And yet, I mean, you would have to think that elsewhere around the country where, they're just looking at this man's overall resume until this year, you're asking yourself, how does this guy get jobs? And yet, Jeff Rimmer inside the NHL, that's amazing, huh? 11 years here and now 19 with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
I didn't realize he'd been gone that long. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah, I was surprised. I looked it up. I'm thinking, well, when did this guy leave here? In 2004 with McLean as the Columbus Blue Jackets came into the league. $800 million for the expansion fee, huh? What was I can't imagine that the Panther expansion price was much more than $50 million. What do you think?
50. I feel like I know
the
that.
Heat was $50 million. I know that. That was the expansion tag for an NBA franchise back then, which now you have them selling for like $4.5 billion, like the Phoenix Suns, and that's just to get rid of a guy in a fire sale. you have to sell the team. And, still the offers go that high. So, interesting stuff there, Jeff Rimmer. We're going to talk to Lenn Robbins in just a few minutes. And, a lot of interesting stuff always happening in the Big Apple. And Lenn Robbins well-versed on all of that, plus, general knowledge of everything that's going on in the world of sports. Hialeah Park, great place to go. They have this wine tasting thing with some fancy schmancy food, too. It's going to be real good. I believe that's Friday night. Check it out at hialeahpark.com. It's just one of the many variety of events that they put together at Hialeah Park. Always doing something special there, whether it's highly sophisticated stuff like this wine tasting or just some casual thing like going out there and watching the Preakness on Saturday. That's right around the corner. And the Champion Simulcasting Room is just the ultimate place to take that in as well. They do a great job in there because they know what the horse player is looking for. Lots of opportunities to wager. Tellers that know what they're doing if you're going to a live teller, and plenty of self-betting machines for the degenerates who like to punch their tickets themselves, like me. Because this way, there can be no mistake, Louie. When you walk away from the machine, you go, what? I said Gulfstream. You can't do that because you were the one that punched the ticket yourself. I like that. The availability there is just absolutely amazing. Champion Simulcasting Room, one of the top simulcasting availabilities that you would have anywhere in the country, including some of my favorites, which are any Vegas casino and the Borgata out there in Atlantic City. I love going to Champions, the Champion Simulcasting Room. It's terrific. Well organized too. Sometimes it's very frustrating. Hey, can you get Santa Anita on one of these screens, huh? It's kind of like in a sports bar, right? CNN? Are you kidding me? Who needs to see this? We need more racing. Golden Gate, it's 3 minutes to post. Let's get it up there. They do a great job of managing all of that at Hialeah Park. So you're going to love it. It's absolutely fantastic. Have all your favorite Vegas-style games in the casino. Get a player's card when you come in the door. And you get entitled to all kinds of freebies and access to all kinds of great discounts on food and drink and entertainment and whatever's happening there. And they will, if you have a player's card, say you're a super-duper double gold platinum seal player somewhere else, they will honor that. You have equal status immediately at Hialeah Park. So, valet parking, that's on the house. Don't worry about it. If you're a high roller somewhere, you're going to be just accorded that same stature right away at beautiful Hialeah Park. A lot of reasons to go there, and it's always a lot of fun. They're open to 5 a.m. on the weekends, 3 a.m. During the weeknights. Make your plans to clear your social calendar and have yourself a great time at beautiful Hialeah Park. All right, coming back with more in a moment here. Lenn Robbins is going to join us on the show. 12 o'clock today, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, and we will be back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 8:22. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. To make the right choice for your home, call Choice Mortgage today.
The world, if my point was ever going to be embellished and going to be proven true, the world has gotten me sugar now.
Grab a bagel and a schmear, plus some Defo and Lubie. Welcome back to the Defo Show.
Welcome back to the show, the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie Lubitz. Our thanks to Jeff Rimmer. That was very nice of him to come on early in the morning there. What are they on? Some kind of central time, I would think, in Ohio? Maybe an hour earlier?
That wasn't.
He's here in South Florida? Yeah.
Looks like that. That was not Columbus, Ohio.
No, I mean, I'm looking at the screened-in porch there and thinking there's a swimming pool behind this guy.
That looked like Weston or Parkland.
Very, very possibly so. Yeah, some very palatial place out west.
He said, I live here. He did the first 5 minutes on how he's here. He's like, I go up there for the games, but I stay here. My wife visits me from time to time, but we made South Florida our home. I've been going to every game. I've been in the press box sitting next to Dale.
Yeah, I remember him saying that. I guess I was thinking of something when he mentioned he was coming to us from South Florida here.
Yeah, he lives
so, that got by me. That shows you how little attention we're paying. But, when he said he was going to every game, I was thinking, how is he pulling that off? Right? I mean, is he flying back and forth? But that did not look like Columbus, Ohio.
That looked like
in the background. It's a dead giveaway.
He gets the best of both worlds. He gets to work for an organization that's been pretty successful.
Yeah.
And live in one of the best places to live in. Good for him. Smart man.
How great is that? Yeah, no, I mean, definitely a wonderful way to go through life. Especially with, you could hear the inherent love of the game there that Jeff Rimmer had. And, it's a whole different culture, huh? I mean, we can't get inside the heads of these players, can we? We try to psychoanalyze hockey players. It's impossible. I don't know that there's any form of analysis that could penetrate and or formulate any kind of realistic opinion about what was happening when you're talking about hockey players. A different breed, Mike Louie Lubitz. A different breed. The guy nearly has his hand severed. He's coming back. Hey, sew me up, right? He wanted to come back in the same game. Pretty amazing, man. All right, so that gets underway Thursday, and we're waiting for that. We're like waiting for Godot here. It's kind of like being one of the Yalta Conquers that was lined up on, what was South Beach in the past, where people were just sitting in rocking chairs all day waiting for their number to be called. Number 86. No, not me. Not now.
No.
That's what it was, right? I mean, you weren't around back then.
I was. My grandparents had a house that now would be worth a lot of money.
Yes.
I was blocks away from the beach in South Beach. It was literally on South Beach.
My grandfather, had a little condo on Meridian, a one-bedroom place. Still had the plastic on the furniture like 20 years after he had moved in there.
100%.
Which was weird. Yeah, that was my first night in Miami when I moved here. I stayed with my grandfather for one night. And I needed a squeegee to get myself off the couch. It was so full of schwitz because he had the plastic still on there, and he refused to drop the air conditioning below like 95 degrees. I know he had some kind of fetish about the electric bill.
Always.
Not sure what kind of fixed income he was on. He made decent money when he was, here, and was working. But yeah, I mean, if the air, if I tried to turn it down like 1 degree, and he came running out of the bedroom there. What are you doing? What are you doing? And that's how I ended up at the White Hart Hotel, which, that was a cesspool of, I'd like to put Jeff Weinstein in there, if you wanted to see what cockroach activity was really like. We used to actually, call them off, we were shooting down planes, I got one at 11 o'clock. And we just sit there in this little room with a fly swatter the entire time, picking off cockroaches. Hardly worth the $60 a week I was spending to be there. But, that's all changed now, Lubie. You're not finding a room down there on First Street and Ocean Drive for $60 a week, $240 a month.
No.
Pretty incredible. But then you could rent a decent apartment in Coconut Grove, which we eventually did, my buddy and I, for $500 a month. Now one bedroom is what, about $1,900?
Yeah, way more.
$2,000 a month for a one here in South Florida. What do you think?
In Miami, it's like $2,500, I would say.
Wow. All right. I mean, it's going to be tough when this debt ceiling falls. And the entire economy is splintered into complete and total chaos. You think they'll let that happen? They can't possibly do that, can they? These people? What kind of bluff is this guy McCarthy running?
It's like talking shit. That's what they do. They love talking shit. That's their favorite thing in the world, is talking a lot of shit.
Yeah, just give you an opportunity to point out every flaw that you could possibly find in the opposite side, and then torture everybody into thinking that you're a big enough clown to actually let this transplant. Be pretty incredible. But we'll see what happens with that, how that shakes out. A lot of problems around the world. I mean, that's why it's good to get lost in the sporting life. You don't have to think about regular and, everyday happenings, which When you look at the news, we were talking about it last night at Christian's birthday party. 5 years old. What kind of world is this kid inheriting, Lubie? 5 years old. Now, what will a little Lubie be facing?
It's gonna be fun. I don't know what
just
to
seem to be ignored. Yeah.
I love this state a great deal. I don't know what it. I know what it is becoming. I don't know what the hell it'll be. I really don't know. I'm scared out of my mind, to be brutally honest.
All right. Well, I'll see what happens. But, well, I won't see it. But you might. And, the future, you would like to think that it was bright. You really would. All right. The PGA Championship. Jim Sarni wants to know my picks in the PGA Championship. I did not actually enter the pool. But here's what I had, Louis. Are you ready? We'll make a few distinctions here. I went with John Rahm, and he was on a list of players to choose from that included Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. I'm putting an X line through McIlroy. And that Masters performance was so disappointing. It's hard to come back to this guy. John Rahm is on fire, is he not, Mike Lubitz? You say Scheffler. That's a toss-up, right? Toss of the coin. I would have gone with Brooks Koepka. Is he going to do something in this tournament? Brooks Koepka.
I don't know. He showed a lot in the Masters. I know he flattened out in the last round, but he was leading pretty much the entire freaking tournament.
Playing great.
And when he was healthy before, all the last 3 years or so, he would contend in all the majors. He's a name that you're going to want to leave out, and then watch he'll come up and surface again. And especially for your pool, like, you don't need them to win. You just need them to not.
No, you just need them to do well. I mean, but you would like them to beat the other guys on that list. See, that's what you're looking at, trying to find who might have the low score on a list. With Koepka, it includes Patrick Cantlay, who a lot of people think is going to be a factor here. Xander Schauffele, Cam Smith, I guess would be the big names there. Francesco Molinari, he's washed up, right? Finished. Nondescript European schmenk at this point. So many other guys I'm not even familiar with. So those would be the guys. Harold Varner III. Remember, he was making a move, then he defected to the Live Tour, became a blood-sucking scab, as we were labeling these guys. And I don't know that he's done anything of distinction since. So Koepka, Schauffele, or Cantlay. That would be the choices there, Libby. What do you think? Koepka over Schauffele or Cantlay or Cameron Smith?
I said Schauffele yesterday, but I didn't realize it was the same bracket as Koepka.
You would take Koepka, take a shot with him?
Because I wouldn't take Koepka, but he's the guy that you won't take him, and then he'll start out strong.
Explode,
and it's like annoying from a gambling standpoint. Like, I wouldn't know what to do. Leaving him out is at your own detriment, because the guy plays when he's healthy. He plays really well in majors.
There you go. All right, so I would have had these 7 guys. I would have had Rahm, Koepka, Cameron Young, Dustin Johnson, taking another guy, a Live Tour scab. Day, who just won the Byron Nelson last week at -23, seems to be back on his game a little bit. This guy, Taylor Gooch, who, he left for the Live Tour as well and has disappeared from sight. But on the list that he's on, worth a shot. And S.W. Kim, I always play this guy. He never does squat. S.W. Kim, Soo-Wee Kim. Those would have been my guys. I don't think Mickelson's going to do anything. What happened to Bryson DeChambeau? Is he finished? He's become DeChambeau. Bryson DeChambeau. What do you make of his chances? 0?
Is he hurt? Like, I don't know what happened to him. He fell off a cliff.
Remember, I mean, he was doing the juice and he was hitting the ball 500 yards. He didn't even care. Like, he would hit it directly into trees and the trees would all topple. He would hit the ball that hard. But, he's fallen off the cliff, as you say. And you'd be hard-pressed to see DeChambeau emerging with the PGA Championship or being in the top 10. So that would have been it. So I'm going to win this thing now that I didn't enter.
Oh, you didn't do it at all? You never entered?
Well, what happened, my connection to the pool, who I used to go through for both the entry fee and obviously, putting the entries in, is dealing with a major health issue. So he's kind of dropped out of the circuit there. And I would be dealing directly with a guy that I don't know. And my problem is, how do I get him the funds? Which I would imagine. See, my friend, it didn't matter if I, forgot to send the money right away. He was never in fear that I was going to stiff him. Whereas this guy, I would have to get the money in, obviously in advance. And I'm not sure that I would be able to do it with this person without seeing him physically. So It's kind of like paying your bookie in the graveyard on a Monday, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't sell Louis Lipschitz the money.
I think now that's the thing is I think people, even bookies, are accepting that stuff because it
Yeah, bookies are taking Zelle payments. Unbelievable. Lipschitz says, "Can you Zelle me the money?" After we had been on the New York Knicks in that series against the Heat. All right, this is great. Welcome, to the show, and always a pleasure to have this man on. A degenerate's degenerate, and has to be just absolutely loving life right now. Is we just were outlining our picks for the PGA Championship. This is how sick it's become, Lenn Robbins. Welcome to the show from Bet Basics. Lenn Robbins joins us here on the program. Len, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're amazed. I mean,
I know, you 4 times. It's weird.
Usually it's a season on the brink, for all of the South Florida teams, especially the winter sports teams. We were, actually having that discussion. People, on the chat line here on our show, Len. Well, it's not even worth it to make the playoffs. I mean, if you're going to be the 8th seed, and sure enough, we have 2 teams still alive after going to the Final Four with 2 college basketball teams. I believe that this is, the greatest winter in the history of South Florida, and maybe the greatest period of time we've ever experienced here. With apologies, and may he rest in peace to Don Shula.
Wow, I can't believe you snuck Shula into that. That's very
I had to get a little Shula in for you. Yeah. Shula. We go to a Shula chant occasionally, just out of nowhere on the show. Shula, Shula.
It's sort of like Ranger fans who, I don't know, 40 years later still, do that whistle and then scream "Hot band sucks" in the middle of the game where aren't even playing the Rangers. I think that's one of the great traditions in hockey, by the way.
Yes. Well, we knew Denny. I mean, he was down here for a while and was working on the local broadcast of the Panther games. And, I mean, I never, when he turned his back, behind, had the nerve to, sort of under my breath go, "Potvin sucks." He was one tough mofo, this Denny Potvin, that's for sure. He would have just as soon cracked a stick over your head. Speaking of which, some interesting stuff with your teams. Lubie has been saying and asserting all along that the Knicks were not that good. That and he has been battling with Knicks fans. I mean, bitter, ugly verbal bloodbaths. To the point where insults are getting to the phase where they almost need some kind of state intervention here, which is very common in Florida, as you know. But were the Knicks not that good? I mean, what was your thought on that series against the Heat, Len?
How's this for a backhanded compliment? Of the 3 people on this show right now, Lubie's the smartest.
Probably is true under all circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah, the Knicks weren't that good.
Remember, Len said this with us months ago. Len actually was ahead. Len's where I got this from.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Honest, yeah.
Well, what was the problem there?
Well, there are a couple. First of all, Julius Randle is our version of James Harden, right?
Yes.
Racks up stats in the regular season, then the postseason comes and everybody's really playing defense, and we realize that Julius Randle isn't that great of a player. That's number one. Number two, if he's the star of the team, he would be maybe a 2 or a 3 on, any other elite team. Like if you just take a look at the Lakers, right? They've got the eyebrow, they've got the king, and then they would have Julius Randle, but he'd be on the bench most of the time, right?
Yeah.
And then you have, Williams, who's terrific defensive guy, right? But no offense whatsoever. I mean, look, they've got a terrific point guard. The trade for Josh Hart was really good. They have a chance to be better next year, but they got as far as they should have gone. And look, let's put it this way: Knicks fans are thrilled with the season. They are. They're really happy with the season. There was no dysfunction. Dolan didn't throw out half the arena. We don't have any guys who were arrested for videos with guns. This is a very successful season for the Nets.
Yeah, and yet handled by the Miami Heat, and Jimmy Butler did not appear to be nearly as assertive as he was in that Milwaukee Bucks series. All right, what do you make of the Celtics, Lenn Robbins? They've had some Jekyll and Hyde efforts in the playoffs. They've had a couple of mysterious disappearing acts, and then at the moment of truth there when they needed Game 6 and Game 7 against the Philadelphia 76ers, they come through, including 5 brilliant quarters in succession by Jason Tatum, who was a bricklayer through 3 quarters of Game 6.
No, he's the guy who I find really fascinating, right? Because my oldest son, who I have disinherited 3 or 4 times now, because he's a Boston fan. He loves all things Boston.
Oh wow!
I don't know. Have some DNA foul
From New York.
How did that happen, Lenn Robbins? I mean, have you checked? I mean,
players of all time.
well, we need like Maury Povich to intervene here.
What do you mean? Like, if I spoke into the postman who happens to have a Boston accent? No, I don't want to go that far. I mean, geez, but
You're scared to ask.
This could be a Prince Harry type of thing. Yeah. How come he has red hair? Yeah, exactly.
That's very good. And they were really worried about like what color would the child be, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Look at the sun for crying out loud.
He looks nothing like either.
Very good.
All of a sudden, Boog Powell shows up as a member of the royal family. Yeah,
Brian Scalabrine.
Scalabrine is on the roster.
But the Rusty Staub ever visit the Royal Palace? I don't know.
Oh my God!
Are we in there with a shot though against the Celtic team? What do you think with the Miami Heat?
I don't. And look, I love the Heat. I think I've said that before on the show. Jimmy might be my favorite player in the NBA. He certainly is my favorite. If I had to walk down a dark alley at night, watch NBA play with me. Now, John Morant has made a run at that, but
yes.
I should say unarmed player in the NBA. Jimmy Butler's one of those guys. We all know the story, right? Like, terrible childhood, right?
Yes.
Got to Marquette where, people really didn't think that much of him and know that much of him. Drafted like 30th? I mean, so basically he's a glorified second round pick. And he didn't come into the league with this reputation as a great offensive player. He came in with a guy who was tough and played defense and, had one of the great woolly eyeballs, right? I mean, he gives you that stare and, geez, it's like, is he Kevin Garnett's, brother or something? But he's made himself into a great player. His will is as good as any player in the NBA. The obvious question is who's next?
Yeah.
Is great on the boards and every now and then he can give you, 20, 22. But if those two guys in Boston are going, how do you, compete with that? So I'm going to take the Celtics in this series, but it would not surprise me if this great winter in South Florida continues. It wouldn't shock me.
We're seeing a lot of autopsies being done with coaches who didn't go far in the playoffs, and we've seen 3 guys that were involved in the postseason already getting fired, even though you would look, just by the numbers, you would have to say, wow, these guys were pretty successful. Tom Thibodeau, though, I mean, before the season, they wanted to, run this guy out of town like Julius Randle. Randle has a good regular season. Thibodeau obviously did a good job coaching the team, to get them into the 5th position there in the Eastern Conference and win a round of playoff action against a good Cavalier team. We looked, at the word schlep in the dictionary. I mean, is this guy physically deteriorating to the point where we might find him behind a hot dog cart somewhere outside the Garden in a couple of years? What did you make of Thibodeau? And, is there any conversation about his status after losing that series to the Miami Heat?
Wow, I'm never going to hire you as like my career life manager. He goes from coaching the
He just looks like a schlep at this point, doesn't he? I mean, disheveled and, I don't know who has his clothing deal, but obviously the guy got hosed there. What do you think? I mean, is he getting the respect of the Knick fan base and the New York media at this point?
I will give you this on that one, right? Do you remember when, like, sometimes college football coaching hires would come down to whether or not, like, he quote unquote looked good on the sidelines, right? Like,
yes.
who, like, was a Maryland guy, couldn't get the Maryland job because they thought he was too overweight, right? He only led them to like some of the best seasons they've ever had. But, okay, so it's safe to say that, the coach of the Knicks isn't going to be in people's sexiest 4 million men in right? But yeah, I mean, I think that, just like what the Heat have got there, right? Because of the great Pat Riley, that, you know what you're going to get. That, any one of those guys, like, I mean, they got a guy who played for the East in college, right? Duncan Robbins, right? Started at Wilson College. He's in the NBA, right? Max Strus, who was supposed to be like a pastry chef in France or something. So, they have all these guys, but you look at them like, how did you get to the NBA? Did you win like in the NBA lottery? But those guys are going to come every night and they're going to give it to you on the defensive end and hope that enough guys make shots on the other end that they can win games, right? And they do. Well, the Knicks had a little bit of that in them, right? They weren't going to outscore anybody. So everybody had to give like max effort and play their role and all that. And they did that. And that comes down to Tibbs. That's always been his MO. And, for the first time, Dolan stayed out of things, management sort of stayed out of things. They put the team together and they let him coach it. Look, is he the long-term answer, Tibbs? I don't know. But like you just said, would you have told me 2 years ago that Monty Williams, Doc Rivers, and Mike Budenholzer would all be looking for jobs in 2023? No.
Yeah, Nick Nurse too, another one.
I mean, it's a lot of guys that have won titles actually, or coaches of the years, or both. So you're a guy who's covered the game of basketball a long time, both in New York with great talent, watched it growing up as well, I'm sure, nationally. I've been going at it with some people recently about Jokic, and I don't understand it, and I get it. You watch him, and he looks like the guy at the rec league that's going to sweat all over you and going to just make shot after shot, and you don't know how. I understand that. But when you look at the stats, I didn't even realize he was top 5 in assists. He's a legit big, plays like a big, and was top 5 in assists. Yeah, in the fourth quarter, he waned last night. But like the show, look, Anthony Davis was great last night. LeBron was great last night. And they paled in comparison to Jokic. How are there still people out there that question his greatness? And there are people that still question his greatness.
Well, I think those are the people who still think that he's related to Rulon Gardner. I know a lot of people aren't getting that reference, but he was the great Olympic wrestler who won gold. And, he beat that Russian guy, to get his name, who looked like, an Adonis, right? And basically, Rulon Gardner pulled Nikola Jokic on, right? It's kind of like slapped all over him and like, stop betting on me, you big American. Stop betting on me and go to gym one, right? But I think with Jokic, the thing that people don't forget, and you hear this in interviews, how smart he is. I mean, he really sees the game like a point guard. And I was watching it last night, like, because of how great of a passer he is, but also how powerful he is in terms of a force in the paint and his ability to score. He spaces the floor like few other players. So yeah, look, the people who don't buy that he's one of the great, and we need to start thinking of him as one of the greatest players in the NBA, one of the top, 75 all time, you're probably never going to change their mind. So don't even bother getting into that. I mean, he is what he is. He's never going to look like, LeBron. But boy, ask LeBron if he'd like to have Jokic on his team.
Oh my God.
It would be, a brilliant pairing. That's for sure. And maybe with LeBron's, pull and leverage with the NBA, he'll be able to arrange that before next year. Find some way to slip Jokic to the Lakers so that they can be prominent again. All right, our man Gerard Gallant, he gets canned by the Rangers. Seemed like he was very successful there. I know it was disappointing that they were eliminated in the first round of the postseason. But, nonetheless, if you look at his record over 2 years, great. But that was a Gallant M.O. I mean, here the story goes that he might have told someone as high as Vinny Viola in the organization to go fuck himself. Not going to endear him to the franchise for long-term tenure, and then he goes to the Golden Knights, has great success, and after a couple of years is gone. What happened there, in your opinion, Lenn Robbins? I mean, was this another situation where maybe Gallant has a tendency to wear out his welcome with upper level management?
Look, you can say that, and that would be, what I call like the easy way out. The thing is, the Rangers bit themselves with the same like New York strain of flu that goes around all the time here with, sports teams, right? They built this team with great young talent. They made a couple of like really smart trades and brought in some great guys, right? And then they said, okay, we got to win the cup or bust now, right? So what do? They mortgage guys. They trade guys away. They bring in Patrick Kane. They bring in who was the guy they brought in? The Russian guy who I love him. He was a terrific player, of course, until he got to the Rangers. Tarasenko, right? They bring him in.
Yeah,
right?
I thought it was Khrushchev. Yeah,
right. Believe me, if Khrushchev could skate, they
would have brought him in. A veteran, for sure. Right. Tough guy.
Talk about an enforcer, huh? What, Stalin wasn't available?
Yeah. I actually thought the guy on the Lightning was Khrushchev. When I first heard his name being announced, a couple of times by the play-by-play guy, Nikita Khrushchev. All right, so you were saying about Gallant, though.
They bring in these guys, and then they expect like the team to have like instant chemistry, right? And it doesn't work, right? So of course, the coach is going to be the fall guy, and it's just easy when the coach is a guy who will, like, walk around the building telling everyone from like, the janitor to, the CEA, to flip off. That makes it easy, right? It's sort of like my MO in marriages. At some point you have to realize that telling the other person that they're always wrong is not going to win you any points.
No. And you have a very difficult time convincing them of that also.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was right.
There you go.
All right. We're looking at, the baseball standings. They seem to be upside down, especially when it comes with regards to New York teams. I was talking to my poor Met fan friend. He's approaching 90 now. He's been a Met fan, a diehard Met fan since their inception, like a lot of us were. My Met fandom obviously has dissipated over the years, although, there'll always be a place for the Mets in my heart. But this was supposed to be the year, Lenn Robbins. How restless are the natives right now in the Big Apple about the, a very slow start? They're behind the Marlins, for God's sake, in the standings of the New York Mets, who appear to have many, many holes that they weren't able to fill. And maybe even some of the people they thought were going to be exceptional, like Verlander and Scherzer, maybe their time, their number was up. But what's happening with regard to the Mets?
Well, your friend, the longtime Mets fan, I know I bumped into him in Mets group therapy. I'm sure I did.
He is bewildered. He is absolutely beside himself. I can't even talk to him. I had to hang up yesterday. I put him on the phone, with some psychic instead. Just said, hey, I don't know what the answer is here, Ira.
Just ask him this, right? When Edwin Diaz got lost for the season,
yes,
in a World Baseball Classic celebration, right?
An omen, yes.
Didn't he know right then and there that there was not going to be a parade in the Canyon of Heroes? Didn't he know right then and there that this is what it is to be a Mets fan?
Yeah,
you have to go. You have to like wander in the desert for 40 years, right?
Eating peyote buttons, yeah. Impaled to a cactus.
Right, 1986, right? And now we're wandering again, right?
Yeah.
So we're wandering, Fortunately now, we have an owner who can maybe not turn sand into, food, but he can certainly buy us a lot of ingredients to make a championship team. But this is the Mets. Look, those two pitchers, theoretically, should they be, a dominating force, at the front of the rotation come the playoffs? Yeah, they should. But, can they stay healthy enough to get us to the playoffs? I don't know. And then who's the closer? I don't know. This is being a Mets fan. It's like trying to hail a cab at rush hour. With the world at home.
Yeah, Casey Stengel has to be rolling over in his grave, seeing what's going on out there. He was trying to do it with an aging Duke Snyder and Jim Hickman, Felix Mantilla, Pumpsy Green. I mean, some of the great names in Met history. But wow, I mean, this has to be a bitter disappointment, I would imagine. And the Yankees, probably. I mean, would you agree with this? The most amazing organization in all of sports history has to be the Tampa Bay Rays. I don't know if the longevity is enough to qualify them in that category, but how on earth are they doing this every year when they have zero advantages that anybody else is able to enjoy? And here are the Yankees loaded for bear, and they're staggering around there, and they're to the bottom of the AL East.
I'll tell you what, they are so fascinating, the Rays, that I'm going tomorrow. They've got a 110 tilt at Citi Field. I'm going tomorrow to see the Rays against the Mets.
Nice.
Because I am just so impressed. I mean, really, the Rays are one of those teams that you have to like them. It's sort of like, they open up a 99-cent store next to Barney's, right?
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, Barney's is out of business for like the 8th time. But they're still selling like little Chinese fans for 99 cents, and they're flourishing.
Yes. Those things that you stick your fingers in and you can't pull them out. Yeah, those are always great. The Chinese handcuffs, I guess they're called.
But they can't cut your fingers off. So,
no.
It's the safest of toys. By the way, I don't know what you guys thought time-wise, but I just want to say that that youth umpire who pulled that kid out of the
the cyclone there, whatever that was. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Did you happen to see that?
I did.
Yeah, I just want to say kudos to that guy, man. That guy is just heads up. He may not be able to call. I think his name is Aiden Wiles. I think I read that. I don't know if he can call balls and strikes, but he can save your kid from a dust storm. That kid is impressive.
That was pretty weird. I mean, I was on a Field of Dreams there where it was just hovering over home plate. And that was it. But no, that was a nice move by that guy. It's not good to be a good Samaritan anymore, though. You have to be careful. I mean, you could be facing charges, of the most heinous, level of criminality. No matter what you try to do to help people out, it's a very dangerous endeavor. All right, Len, give us your prediction then. The Heat series with the Celtics, it's unanimous everywhere we've looked. We've seen nothing but Celtics in 5, 6, or 7. What's your thought on that? And who emerges with the championship?
Wow, it's great. Look, I would love to pick the Heat. I really would. I just, at some point, the talent catches up with you, right?
Yeah.
So I'll say Celtics and I'll say Lakers. And, how great would it be to hear Boston fans chanting "Beat LA" and to see Jack Nicholson, who now might be embalmed, but
he doesn't look good, no.
That would be great. But I would tell you guys that I literally tried to get a scoop. The Yankees were playing in the World Series, and he was spotted at Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium. So we get a call from our bosses at the Post. Somebody's got to go interview Nicholson. Well, at the old Yankee Stadium, the only bathroom there, like those box seats where Nicholson was standing, was in the press room. So all of a sudden, I see Nicholson walk into the press room and go into the bathroom. So I say, "This is my shot." So I walk in right next to him and saddle up to the urinal next to him and say, like, "Hi, Mr. Nicholson, Lenn Robbins, New York Post." It was the first urinal exclusive in New York Post history. I'm proud of that.
The Urinal Tales with Lenn Robbins. Hey, I could have had a new name for a column there. What about the Wemby sweepstakes? One last thing, Lenn Robbins. You follow these sort of things. What about Wemby? And will this preserve the career of Greg Popovich, who does seem to be morphing into an older Donald Sutherland, does he not? After all of this losing, I mean, he's taken on the look. He could be in 100 movies, and you would mistake him for Sutherland. But does this rejuvenate Popovich's interest in staying in basketball?
Well, why do you have reason to believe that he's losing interest in staying in basketball? Because I don't
know. I mean, how many more beatings can he take? I mean, it's like eventually Arturo Gatti was going to wear down. You can only take so many beatings. 22 and 60 this past year, and blown out in almost every game. Is this guy that good? Well, what do you think? I mean, the equation obviously would be, the 20 years since LeBron that we haven't seen this type of prospect.
Do you remember the guy Greg Odom came out
Yes,
of Ohio
yes.
State maybe like 20 years ago, right? 72,
right.
and he was going to be like the next Wilt, right?
Taken ahead of Durant.
Yes.
Right, and injuries come along, and it just never happened for the guy, right? And who just got drafted like a year ago?
Chet Holmgren. Yeah, Holmgren out of
Yep.
Gonzaga.
Yep.
Skinny waif of a. He looked like Henry Finkel. No, he looked more like Mel Counts. That guy. He really did.
Looked like olive oil, right? So here's the thing: the guy's got a frame and a skill set like we maybe have never seen before. Let's see what happens when he gets to the NBA, and there are men, and there are guys who will do what they have to do to win, right? They will be NBA pros, right? And they start banging that body around. Now, does he have whatever it is, that beats in the heart of NBA players? We'll find out soon enough. I hope he's a great success. I mean, I do, because first of all, can you imagine the house that he's going to have to build just so that he doesn't duck his head in hallways?
This is holy Ralph Sampson all over again. I mean, we don't know how this guy's going to hold up. All right. It was interesting. It was one of the few times I actually, got a little excited there when they, announced the number one pick overall. It used to just be, I don't know if you were the same. I think we discussed this, that the only reason to tune into the NBA Draft Lottery show was to see Elgin Baylor with his hands over his face as the Clippers got screwed again on the number one overall pick. And, and that was the whole thing. It was like watching, Aaron Rodgers in the green room many years ago at the draft. Len, always a pleasure, man. I hope things are well and that you can patch things up with your son with the Celtics now primed to go, possibly to the NBA championship round if they can beat up on the Miami Heat, as most people expect. And it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Well, thanks for having me here. But you know what? He cut my heart out with a spoon, right? It's like that scene in The Godfather, right? Where they're in Cuba.
Yeah.
I wish my son well.
Take the plane home. You're my brother still. Yeah, exactly. Let's get out of this joint. All right. Thanks, Len. Always a pleasure. I appreciate it. Lenn Robbins, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks. I love you both.
All right. A great American, Lenn Robbins. All right. That's going to do it for us. Had a lot of fun being with you here on the program today. Our thanks to Jeff Rimmer. That was great. I mean, good insight into a lot of different things that we would have no knowledge of whatsoever, but yet feel very well equipped to comment on. And and that's going to be exciting, I think. Hurricanes and the Panthers. I'm giving the Panthers a better shot of getting out of this round than I do the Miami Heat, Lubie. And it would be amazing to see them play for the Stanley Cup Championship, wouldn't it? I mean, that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't imagine that series isn't at least contentious. You can't necessarily envision. I mean, how could the Hurricanes possibly just own the Panthers in this series after the two series that they played already against very, very good teams that were deemed to be better?
Yes.
And statistically were during the course of the regular season, and probably had more, there's certainly more illustrious players.
Yes.
Than Carolina, which is relatively nondescript. Who was the guy with the severed hand that Rimmer was talking about? Terashenko or something? I thought when I saw the crawl that he might be coming back. I thought they were talking about a UFC fighter. I really did.
I don't know who. Yeah, he Rimmer did bring up a guy that they've had that hasn't played. I don't know. I know that Jordan Stahl's been around forever.
Yeah.
And he's still strong in the league. Look, Carolina's played really well. They've been dominant in these playoffs. So have the Panthers. It comes down to Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky's
Sergey, man, got to carry us.
Then they'll be in the series, and they could win if he goes back to being the guy you think.
Oh my God! If he's bow-legged, and seeing things, double.
I can't read the eye chart.
Right, the big E on the eye chart. He's like, a little uncertain about. That's never good. That's never good.
In trouble, and the Heat. Look, it sucks because if Hero and Oladipo were playing, I would actually give the Heat the nod, and I'd be very confident.
Yeah.
Their scoring after Butler leaves a lot to be desired. Lowry's played better. Dan's played better, but it's just I don't know. I'm curious to see what Jimmy we see. That'll tell me where this series goes.
Steam was coming out of Pat Riley's ears, man, as he was, just using all of his brain power to figure out a way to stop Jason Tatum, and then at the same time not cave into Jaylen Brown, and have Bam Adebayo be effective against their big men. Which Williams is okay. He doesn't seem to be. I don't know. I mean, he's had his ups and downs since that injury. That there have been times he comes in there looks good, times that you're like, who the hell is this guy with the hair? And then Horford, has been surprising for as you say, a 60-year-old guy. It's amazing, yeah. Tito Horford, looking at grandchildren. He looks like he could still play, by the way. All right, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, 12 o'clock today here on South Florida Live. Tune in for that. And you can also find it on Facebook, Let's Eat South Florida.
Yes.
Always interesting, to read the comments on that page. But great job, by the way. I do have to pay the ultimate compliments to the people at Bonefish Max. They handled all of the negatives that you would find on Let's Eat South Florida, again, with the separate checks, kids, big party, people coming in at different times and ordering at different times. Dynamite job there. It really was. They did a great job. Wide variety of stuff on the menu, Libby. You're right.
Well, and it's all pretty good.
Everything is good. Yeah, everything's good.
They do a really good job. The portions are great. The prices are good.
Yeah.
Whether you're with a family or just going on a date, like they actually do a really good. It's right by my house. We've gone there a bunch of times. We love going there. My family, that's like a go-to place because the kids can run to the video.
Now, which location? The one Federal, or they have another location?
That's the thing is they have, I think, two or I think they have one in like the.
I think they have a couple of them. Yeah,
out by you, and they have one right by me actually. So
okay, yeah, because I go to the one on the east side of town here, which I think was the original one.
I think so.
Nice setup there too. It's nicely
appointed. It was great. The service is really good. They handle everything. Just throwing out.
And a lot of variety, man. Everything from a Cuban sandwich to fine fresh fish. They had all kinds of stuff.
Unlike Mike Mayo, you can never order wrong. I'll give you that. I've tried a bevy, like chicken parm. Like they have a lot. They one of these places.
Yeah.
Remind me of Landlubbers that does a lot of different things.
They do everything well. Yeah.
Well. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. Compliments to the chef there, and also to the waiter. He did a fine job. The separate check things would drive you out of your mind. And the kids menu, I'm ordering off the kids menu, which try to get away with being 5. All right, we'll see you later, 12 o'clock, when we'll have more conversation about food and mirth and merriment on Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. As we leave you now that. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show.
The time.
Now, we're doing, is Gurgles with us tomorrow?
Yes,
I believe he is. Okay, good.
We'll be there tomorrow. We have a full-fledged Hialeah Park Trivia Challenge.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. And that'll be a lot of fun. And maybe we'll get the Polyman to handicap the Preakness for us.
That'd be fun.
Well, I'll see if I can get that done.
I'd love to have him back.
Yeah. He came up big. It's 9:08.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my show.